triggered. It happens before we even realize it. A word, a wound, a moment. Something sets us off. David knew what it was like to be triggered. His emotions nearly destroyed him, but they also led him back to God. Triggered by anxiety, when life felt out of control. Triggered by fear, when enemies closed in. Triggered by anger, when betrayal cut deep. Triggered by lust, when desire took the lead. Triggered by depression, when hope felt lost. But David's story didn't end there, and neither does yours. What if your triggers pointed you to God?
Well, hey, good morning again. And before I dive in any further, because I was just guilted by text, so just to let you know, in also 2 weeks is the women's retreat. And see, I had to give up here and talk about that really quick. So if you have not registered and you are a woman, please register or see my wife. She would love to get you to go. She would love to. She said that she will sponsor you if you have not registered and you can't go. So see her, and she's going to pay for you to go. That's what she told me. She said she's going to work extra hard and go full time, and she's going to pay for you to go. That's what she told me. That's what she texted me in this text. She said everybody's on me, is what she said. So, I'm just kidding, by the way. She didn't say that because her money is my money, so don't do that. It's God's money. You know, jazz hands. No, anyway, all right. So please, if you want to, if you want to go to the women's retreat and you are having financial issues and you do need sponsors, we do have people that are willing to sponsor. We have somebody who's already volunteered and said, hey, we want to help. And so please let us know. We would love for you to go. We do believe it is life-changing. We do believe that you will connect, you will make friends, and it will be one of those things that will make it to where you will have deeper relationships here at the church. So now let's dive into this. So how many of you have you had one of those moments of fear? Like a moment of just pure fear. Like if you just sit there and you thought about it. And so as a kid, some of us as kids, maybe some of you were afraid of the dark. Anybody? Were you afraid of the dark? So I had one of these instances when I was a kid. My bedroom was upstairs in the house that we lived, and so I wouldn't go upstairs until I turned on the light to make sure the light was on upstairs. And so I had to run upstairs and turn on the light and then come back downstairs, turn off, I had to do those things in order to make sure that there was a light on upstairs. I don't know why I was terrified. I knew that there was nothing up there, but I was afraid. I have no idea what happened. I was just afraid. And it was just fear. I wasn't afraid of the boogeyman. I was just afraid of what might jump out, what might be up there. Maybe it was because my brother used to terrify me. My brother used to jump out of nowhere sometimes and just punch me in the chest out of nowhere. I'd just be like, boom, and he'd be like, got you. And be like, wait, and I'd be like, yeah. And it'd be like, it's like, okay, you got me. Like, I can't breathe, thanks. But you start to think about it. But there's other times. There's other things that make us afraid. That we just have this sense of fear, right? We're afraid. And sometimes it's things that, my wife, she's afraid of everything. Everything. My gosh. If it slithers, she's afraid of it. If it crawls, she's afraid of it. If the doors are unlocked, she's afraid of that. If it just doesn't really matter. It's everything. She's afraid. It's just who she is. And that's okay. That's just. And for her, she takes that fear and she turns and she pivots into her relationship with God. What she usually do, like with a snake, she runs, or like any of those things. But usually, when she has a moment, she'll take that and she'll go, okay, I'll turn on worship music, or I'll do this, and she goes into that moment where she tries to go, okay, well, this is an unrealistic fear sometimes, and she'll turn that towards God. Now, there's other times, though, where it's just like, okay, let's just start with this. I'm going to share with you. So some of you don't know the story of David, so we'll just kind of start at the beginning. And so we'll just run through the beginning of Samuel real quick. And I'll just give it to you in highlights. And so the valley's silent except for the giant's taunts. Warriors tremble in fear. And then David steps forward, sling in hand, slings it, kills it. Goliath falls. David takes a sword, lops his head off. And then Saul, once David's greatest admirer, now haunts him with a murderous obsession, right? He's after him. He's like, hey, we're going to get you. Desperate, David hides in enemy territory. But when the Philistines recognize him, panic grips David's heart. And instead of trusting God, he plays the fool. And drooling and clawing like a madman, right? He's this is, so by the way, this is the man after God's own heart, right? This is what it says. He's the guy who's running around, drool running out of his face, just like that's what's happening, and he escapes, but with no dignity. Like there's just no dignity there. And so that's 1 Samuel 21. And fear is lingering, right? He is in pure fear. And see, David spends years running. He's spending years running, trying to survive. And he's battle-tested, but he's tired. And while his men still follow him, their lives are spent in exile. Their families are always at risk. And see, the thing is that they're always looking over their shoulders. I mean, it's kind of like they're always in this constant state of fear. They're always on the run. It's just like, think about this. It's like if you were a fugitive on the run from the police, you would always live in this constant state of they're right around the corner. They're almost there. They're about to get me. They're about to get me. And this is how they are. And so this is how David and his men are. And this is how all of the men's families are as well. Just think that their children and their wives, none of them have any peace. None of them have any peace. They're just living this way. And see, without warning, fear ambushes and attacks their very hearts. That's what happens here. So returning to their camp, smoke rises in the distance, and their city is in ashes. And all their wives and their children have been taken. And David's once loyal men turn against him. And they're gripping stones, ready to kill their leader. So this is 1 Samuel 30. This is where we're going to pick up at, verses 1 through 6. And so this time, David has nowhere to run. He has no place to go. There is nowhere to go. There's no sword to rise. There's no act to put on. What will fear trigger in David? What will happen here? And see, just like David, fear reveals where our trust in God is the weakest. That's what it does. This is what happens here. See, and what happens is years later, David will write a psalm to lament. What he does is that, and lamenting, by the way, in case you don't know, lamenting is crying out to God. So when you ever hear this, I lament to God, this is just whining to God. That's all it is, right? You're just whining at this point. You're whining to God. You're crying out. And they just don't call it whining because that sounds pretty bad. It's, and so he's triggered his heart. And it says, he goes, listen to my prayer, O God. Don't ignore my plea. Hear me and answer me. My thoughts trouble me and I am distraught because of what my enemy is saying, because of the threats of the wicked, for they bring down suffering on me and assail me in their anger. My heart is in anguish within me, and the tears of death have fallen on me. Fear and trembling have beset me, and horror has overwhelmed me. I said, oh, that I have the wings of a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. I would flee far away, and I would stay in the desert. I would hurry to a place of shelter, far from the tempest and the storm. He's whining. He's crying out. He's saying, if I had wings, I would fly away from this place. I would run. I'm afraid. I'm tired. I don't want to be here. See, my question, what does fear trigger in you? What does fear trigger in you? Does it trigger in you Do you find yourself, see, here's what happens. Some people, when they get fear, all of a sudden, they find themselves scrolling through the news. Like that's what, instead of, they start scrolling through Facebook. They are afraid of something, whatever that thing is. It may not be, obviously sometimes you get a snake in front of you, I run, right? I got a spider in front of me, I deal with it, I stomp on it, dead. It shouldn't have came towards me. It's got to go away. That's how it goes. But and sometimes there's other things that make us afraid. There's things that we have fear of. So just to give you an idea, there's some people that are afraid of our president right now. There's fear. There's some people that have fear of the nation, where the direction we're going. There's some people that have fear of our governor. There's some people that have fear of just even city leadership. There's some people that have fear of California forever. There's some people that have fear of these other things that are happening. There's fear. And they're just going in this direction. And they're just like, I'll scroll through the news. I'll find something. I'll find some direction. I'll find something that'll help me pivot from this. And I'll just keep going through this. There's fear. Some people, when fear happens, they'll hesitate making decisions because of fear that they'll mess things up further. Some people, there's fear, and they'll be panicked by deadlines. And they're convinced that they won't measure up. There's other people, they're dreading conversations that they might go wrong. They're afraid of that. Or some of us, we just want to fly away from our troubles. We just want to get away. We're just looking for Southwest. And even now, Southwest has made it to where we're afraid of even flying with them. It's going to cost so much money because we got to pick a seat now. We got to pay for that. We got to pay for baggage, all those things. They've just made it to where you can't even get away. What does fear trigger in you? What does it trigger in you? What does it do? What does it do? See, emotional triggers reveal where we need God's healing the most. That's what it is. That's what we're talking about. What are you most afraid of? See, God has a plan to use the pressure of fearful moments in our lives. That's what he does. See, fear is not the opposite of faith, by the way. I just want you to know that. Fear is not the opposite of faith. So anybody who ever tells you that, they're lying to you. That's not what it is. See, fear is like the valve of a tire, right? Or the end of a balloon. It's simply the trigger to let air in or let air out. That's all it is. And see, God doesn't want us to be defeated or deflated by fear. And so I just want you to think about it that way. Think about it. And I was going to bring up a balloon or maybe a tire, and I was going to give you this illusion, like this illustration of a tire being inflated or maybe a balloon being inflated, but I didn't have time to go get it. And so, so you just have to just use that illustration in your brain, right? And so just imagine that I just pumped up the balloon just a little bit, right? I just pumped it up a little bit, and so now we have a balloon on stage. It's a little bit inflated, right? So these are opportunities. So every time that we have fear, there are opportunities for followers of Christ to have faith. That's what they are. Fear is opportunities for us to be followers of Christ, to be powered up and to be pumped up. That's what it is. See, that fear that brings pressure that will either be used to fill us up or with more faith, it'll allow us to be filled up with more faith, or will drain what little faith remains. See, and it's a decision that we can have. Either we can allow it to fill us up or we can allow it to drain us. So you can allow that pressure to either build up or you can allow it to deflate you. Which one are you going to allow it to do? And see, most of us, we allow that pressure to deflate us. Thankfully, God uses the pressure of fearful moments to power up our faith. So thankfully. So the question comes into, again, what are you most afraid of? So here's a research moment for you. Chapman University came out last year, and they asked, what are people most afraid of? So number one thing that people said they're most afraid of right now, corrupt government officials. That's the number one thing. Corrupt government officials. 65.2% of people said they are very afraid of corrupt government officials. Number 2, people I love becoming seriously ill. People I love becoming seriously ill. That's 58.4 people. Number 3, I didn't even think of this, cyber terrorism. I was like, I wouldn't even thought about this. 58% of people. Cyber terrorism, that's like being hacked. You know, like having your bank account hacked, all those things. I didn't think about that. Number 4, people I love dying. That's 57% of people. Number 5, Russia using nuclear weapons. It's 55% of people. 55.8, by the way. At a close number 6, at 55.7, is not having enough money for the future. At a close number 7, 55.0, U.S. becoming involved in another world war. Number 8, at 55.0 as well, North Korea using a nuclear weapon against the United States. Number 9, another terrorist attack against the United States at 52.7. And number 10, biological warfare. My gosh, you guys are afraid of some weird stuff. You know, like I get it. By the way, I want you to know something. These are all things that they talk about repeatedly on the news. All things they talk about repeatedly on the news. Because if you weren't watching the news, outside of the people you love becoming seriously ill and not having enough money or people dying, you would never hear about any of these things on a regular basis. You would just never hear about them. These are these things that we hear about. Now, how about some more familiar things that made the list? At number 45, sharks. How about that? People are afraid of sharks. Number 45, by the way. Like when you get in the ocean, sharks, I get it. How about 59? I just want you to know something. 59 should be much higher. Public speaking. 29% of you, only 29% of you said public speaking. I guarantee, how many of you want to come up here and start doing this? 100%, you know. 64, how about number 64? Spiders and other insects. 26% of people. All right, 72, tight spaces. Anybody claustrophobic? Anybody? All right. Number 81, needles. Anybody afraid of needles? Nope. You guys all like being poked on, all right? All right. Number 83, how about some ghosts? Anybody afraid of some ghosts? All right, just checking. See, maybe add to the things that your own things on the list, right? Maybe add your own things to the list. You got your own things that, you know, maybe it's quicksand, maybe it's elevators, maybe it's falling vending machines, maybe it's accidentally hitting reply all on an email, maybe it's texting the person you're actually gossiping about, maybe it's waving at somebody who waved at the person behind you, maybe it's any of those things, right? I don't know. What is it the thing that you're like afraid of? I mean, there's all of those things that you could be like, because I can tell you all of those things, like we get in an elevator, my wife is terrified, by the way. Terrified. And I'll tell you, start jumping in it, oh, it's so much better. So much better. You just start jumping in that bad boy, and she's like, you better stop, and you just do it more. So anytime you ride in an elevator with her, just jump a couple times. Just bounce it once or twice. You don't have to keep doing it. What about everyday things? What are most of you afraid of? See, Old and New Testament is filled with different verses and examples of what God wants us to believe, what he wants us to think, and what he wants us to do in times of fear. See, there's a persisting factoid, right? There's this thing out there that people say that there's the circulating thing that said there's 365 fear nots in the Bible. By the way, that's not entirely accurate. That's not entirely accurate. It's actually misleading. The number of verses and examples are actually closer to 80. So there's 80 occurrences where it's more of fear not. Speaking through the prophet Isaiah to God's people in Israel, God promises, he says, "But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, you, descendants of Abraham, my friend, I took you from the ends of the earth. From the furthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you, and I have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. See, again, if I was to let some air out of the balloon, God doesn't want us to be deflated by fear. He doesn't want that. He wants us, he's like, I will be there. I will strengthen you. I'll help you. And see, hundreds of years later, he said, for the Spirit of God, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. See, and that word timid, it's delia, D-E-I-L-I-A, delia. And when you look at this in Greek, it's best understood to be fearfulness. Fearfulness, that's what it means. It's to be, and see, like if you're, like, how are you fearfulness? Like how are you not, like when you start thinking about this, how are you living? Do you live that way? Are you living without fear? You know, and I don't know. When you are triggered by fear, how do you respond? When you're triggered by fear, how do you respond? What do you do? Which direction do you go? And so we're going to look at this. So, as you go through this, another triggering episode from David's life is he's once again confronted by a familiar foe, the Amalekites, right? As one of the curiosities of the Amalekites is that they always seem to be present and cause trouble no matter how many times the Israelites seem to defeat them. It's what happens. So what familiar fears trigger you over and over again? So here's what happened. And David and his men reached Ziklag on the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided Nevgeh and Ziklag. The first one I mispronounced. They had attacked Ziklag, David and his men's home base, and they had burned it, taking captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old, and they killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. That's 1 Samuel 31 and 2. So fear can deflate our faith and distort how we see reality, right? This is what happens. If we let it, it'll do that. And so ever notice when we have a flat tire, how the steering pulls in that direction? If you ever have a flat tire, it just pulls you in that direction. You have to, and see, fear pulls us in the directions that lead in doubt and destruction. That's what fear does. Fear will always pull you in that direction. So sometimes the same old fears not only keep coming back, but they warp our perspective, right? They warp our perspective of the truth. So familiar fears can often be the most difficult to defeat. So the ones that we're trying to defeat, they're the ones that are the most difficult because they're the familiar ones. They're the ones that always come back. They're the ones that were always raised up. And see, when faith leaks out of our life and we start running on fear, we can quickly find ourselves pulling towards the emotional ditch of doubt. We can just end up being and it's just what happens. You'll end up in the ditch of doubt, depression, and devastation. That's just where we end up being at. And so how do we get out of this? What do we have to do? How do we have to change things? What does it look like? So here's how David and his men respond. When David and his men reach Ziklag, they find it destroyed by fire and their wives and their sons and their daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. Think about this. Anybody in here? You ever have a child? Because I won't ask you to actually admit to this. You ever have a child that cried so much that they passed out? That they cried so much that they went and laid, they were just, and then they fell asleep on the bed? I know. All of you in here have done it once or twice, but I won't ask you to admit to it. But I know that we've had children that have done it. I have a son and a daughter and another daughter who have all done it. They've all gotten to that point where they've cried so much, they've been told no, or they had something happen, and they cried so much that they ran to their rooms, and they got on their bed, they buried their face in their pillows, and they passed out. Same thing happens. They cried so much, and they wept so hard, and they wailed so much that they just passed out. They just had no strength. They couldn't do anymore. It's the same thing that happens. And David's two wives have been captured. Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. So you would be a little distressed too if you're men, right? So the men that have been following you, they've been looking over their shoulders, going, hey, they're coming to get us. But David he's our dude. We've been following him. And now those dudes are going, David, we're coming to get you now. And by the way, when you get stoned to death back then, I'm going to give you this mindset. So when they did it right, they would dig a hole, right? They would dig a hole to your waist. And then they would bury you to your waist level. And they would throw rocks until there was nothing left of you except for the waist that was buried. That's how a typical stoning happened in the Old Testament. So if you want to know how a stoning went down in the proper way, so that for me, I don't want that to happen, right? That there is going to cause a little bit of fear. Like, I don't want to be hit with a rock at all. I certainly don't want to be hit with rocks until I'm gone. Like, I don't want that. Like, please don't throw rocks at me until I don't exist any longer. And so that's what's happening. So David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him, and each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. Can't imagine why. They were gone. They didn't know if they were alive, if they were dead, but David found strength. Where? And his Lord, his God. Where do you find strength at? See, fear is natural. See, that's the thing. Fear is natural, but it should drive us to God, not to despair. See, where is your fear driving you? When you have fear, when it arises, where does it drive you to? Does it drive you to God, or where does it drive you to? See, sometimes fear will drive you to a bottle. Sometimes fear will drive you to a pill bottle, to an alcohol bottle. Sometimes it'll drive you to a drug. Sometimes it'll drive you to a bad relationship. Sometimes it'll drive you to whatever. What is fear driving you towards? See, when you have a flat tire, where's the first place you drive? You drive someplace where they can fill the tire back up, right? Where they can fix it. You don't just keep riding on the rim. You don't just be like, hey, look at this. We're riding. Like, I love how this feels. This is great. I'm just telling you right now, I got a flat tire. So, number one, I got a flat tire, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago in my car. And my car got angry at me. Like I drive a car that was like, you have a flat tire, stop now, or we'll make you stop. And essentially it was like, hey, stop. And then I got to the place where they fix the car, and they go, oh yeah, we typically don't work on Teslas. And I go, oh, it's just a tire, man. Come on, can you put a tire on it? He's like, I don't know, like, we'll put a tire on it, but we don't repair, we don't put plugs in it. I don't want a plug. Like, if you're gonna put a plug in it, I'll go someplace else. I want a patch. And he's like, yeah, well, and it became a whole ordeal. And then the car, even after they fixed it, the car was like, we still have a flat tire. Like, it needed to be reset. There was all kinds of things. I had to call Tesla. It was like a whole big ordeal, but it did not ride right. It was like, no. It was like a whole big ordeal in order to get it fixed. But it wanted to be fixed immediately. It wasn't one of those things like, hey, let's wait until you go to the store, till you go meet with your wife. Let's go to this other place. Let's go to a tour around town. Let's drive to the city. Let's come back. Let's go do these things. It was like, no, let's go now. Let's get it fixed. And see, here's the thing. When you get a flat tire, what do you usually do? You pull up to the side of the road, you get the spare tire out, and you fix it. You don't wait. You don't cruise around on the rim for a week. Maybe you put the spare tire on because you're broke, and you ride that around for a little while, but that's what you do. You at least change it to the spare. But see, that's the thing. You do something. You take it someplace to get it fixed. When you have flat faith, where is the place that you should go? To the one who is pioneer and the perfecter of faith. That's where you should go. The one you should go. See, like times before, David, he has this opportunity with Goliath, and David demonstrates his faith. See, like David said to Abinadab the priest, the son of Ahimelech, I mispronounced it, bring me the ephod. David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue this raiding party? I will overtake them. Pursue them, God answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. That's 1 Samuel 37:8. He said, notice the question that's missing. Why doesn't David ask if they will be successful in rescuing their loved ones? He doesn't ask that question. See, maybe David's faith isn't without a trace of fear. See, that's what it is. And see, in a crisis, stop the leak first. Stop the leak first by prayer, not panic. Stop the leak first by prayer, not panic. When you're triggered by fear, where do you turn to stop the leak? Do you turn to food and snacks to cope when things feel heavy? Do you find yourself reaching for something to numb the stress? Are you scrolling endlessly to buy stuff to avoid what you're feeling? Are you looking to hooking up or pornography or feeling something different when life gets tough? Does it pump you up or deflate you even further? What is it? See, are you praying for things? Are you praying? And then I know sometimes you're like, what do I even pray for when I'm in fear? What do I do? Or what is it supposed to sound like? And just look at what, in another psalm, David shares an example. This is what it sounds like. It says, "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths where there is no foothold. I have come to the deep waters, and the floods engulf me. I am worn out, calling for help. My throat is parched. My eyes fail, looking for my God. Those who hate me without reason outnumber the hairs on my head. Many are my enemies without cause. Those who seek to destroy me, I am forced to restore what I did not steal." Do you see how he's crying out? Do you see how he's just going, God, help me through this? I don't even know what I did. I'm forced to restore things that I didn't even take. I don't understand. I'm worn out. I'm calling for help. My throat is parched. Please give me some water. A few verses later, he continues, and he's crying out, "Answer me, Lord. Out of the goodness of your love and your great mercy, turn to me. Do not hide your face from your servant. Answer me quickly, for I am in trouble. Come near and rescue me. Deliver me because of my foes." See, David is crying out. See, and thankfully, faith is what fills back up when our fears leave us feeling empty. That's what happens. See, here's what happens. With a little help, David and his men find their enemy. And there the Amalekites were, scattered all over the countryside, eating and drinking and reveling because of the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until the evening of the next day, and none of them got away except for 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. David recovered everything from the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing. Young or old, boy or girl, plunder or anything else they had taken. David had brought everything back. He took all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock, saying, "This is David's plunder." See, fear reveals where our trust in God is leaking. See, the trigger in times of fears, God uses this pressure, right? He uses this fearful moments to power up our faith. See, when you start to look at this, see, God, he sends David. And here's the thing. I don't know how many men went with David, because it doesn't say. It doesn't say how many men had his back when he goes over here and he goes fights with them. But he prays to God, and God goes, "You're going to go overtake them." He doesn't ask what we're going to get out of it. He doesn't say, "Hey, are we going to get our stuff back? Are we going to get..." He prays to God, and God goes, "Go do it. You will overtake them." And they go, and you don't hear anything about how many men. You don't hear anything about how much. It just says David fights them from dusk until the evening of the next day. And then it says that they bring everything back, and it's David's plunder. Well, you start to see this, and you go, well, how many men did David take with him? Well, 400 of them got away, so he must have took some people with him. Some of them must have followed. Some of them must have been like, well, David, we still got your back. So God must have came through and must have convinced some people along with him to be like, hey, David, we're still going to follow. David, we're still going to, we're still going to trust, and we're still going to believe, and we're still going to believe that God is going, so praying and spending time with God not only convinced David to continue to move in faith, but it also convinced those around him. So whenever David got down and he cried out, and when he was on his knees, and he's praying out, and he's going, God, please guide us, lead us, point us in whatever direction that we're supposed to be going. What are we supposed to be doing? The people around him saw what he was doing, and it obviously led them, and it gave them faith for whatever direction he was supposed to be going. What does your family, what do your friends see? What do people around you see? Do they see you acting in faith? Or do they see you just continuing to go, I'm going to continue to act the way that I've always acted? Do they see you in prayer? Do they see you acting as you're spending time with God? Do they see you doing things that show that you are a faithful individual? Or do you just continue to act as you've always acted and wondering why people don't seem to follow you in faith? Why your family doesn't follow you in faith? Why your children don't follow you in faith? Why people don't actually follow your leadership? Why is it that people aren't doing things? Well, they've never seen you do anything in faith. Why would they follow you in faith? Why would they act like they, so you have to look at this and go, well, in 1 Samuel 30, you see David cry out to God. He obviously did this in front of people, and it made it to where people will follow him. They were looking at stoning him all the way until there was nothing left of him. He cries out to God, and they go, we're going to follow him. We're going to follow him because he is seeking the perfecter of his faith. He is seeking one that is guiding him. And see, guys, what are we pursuing? What is it that we're seeking? Because if we're not seeking the one there that's guiding us and leading us, well, then no wonder why we're this aimless ship that's out there. That we're just wandering the seas and we have no direction, we have no place, that we're just wandering rudderless. Because we're not actually seeking God. Why would anybody follow us? Why would anybody want to be like, hey, I want to follow that? Well, you have no direction. You're not seeking God for clarity. Why would anybody follow you into battle? Why would anybody be like, hey, we're going to see something. We're going to see how God is going to deliver, how God is going to bring back, how God is going to help us overtake this. Like we're going, hey, God, deliver us soon. Deliver this community. Deliver this. Well, how's that going to ever happen if we're not actually spending time with God and we're not doing this in such a public atmosphere where people see this and how we're doing it? How are we seeking this? How are people seeking this and seeing how we're acting in faith? Sorry. A little bit of a rant. So we've already seen and heard what David does in multiple Psalms, and we see the celebratory Psalms, and we saw the Psalms where he cries out. Well, let's see the steps of what we need to do. How do we move forward? What do we have to do? In Psalms 55, the same chapter of the opener that we talked about, it says, cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. But you, God, will bring down the wicked into a pit of decay. The bloodthirsty and the deceitful will not live out half of their days. But as for me, I trust in you. See, who are you trusting in? Who are you trusting in? Are you trusting in your own? What you can do? See, one of the first ways to stop the leaking of trusting is to admit your fears openly to God. Do you admit your fears openly to God? What are your fears? Do you admit them openly? See, another Psalms, perhaps probably the most well-known. As soon as I say it, most of you will know it. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me besides quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and your love will follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In Psalms 23, 1 through 6. Now your version may read a little different depending upon what year your NIV was produced or what version of Bible you have. But see, what you have to start doing is you have to start looking at this and go, you have to recall God's past faithfulness. Start recalling God's past faithfulness. So the next time you're triggered by fear, whether it's familiar fear or completely unexpected fear or an ambush or betrayal or blindsiding panic, remember God's faithfulness and actually speak it out loud. You know, you have to pump faith. You have to pump your faith back up. So that's what you have to do. You have to go back to this. Remember, hey, God still is going to lie me. God's still going to guide me. God's still going to make sure that I'm going in this right direction. God's still going to lead me. I'm not going to lack anything. I'm going to be able to go down in the right direction. You just have to continue to remember that stuff. And then finally, respond with action, not inaction. See, another triggering episode David reflects on, and he writes in this challenge, right? And so Psalms 56. Be merciful to me, my God, for my enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long, they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride, many are attacking me. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, and I am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? See, what is it that where are you placing your trust? Where is it that you are, and then what can mere mortals do to you? There's another verse, right? We go, and we go to the New Testament, and we can see who can be against us. If God is for me, who is against me? Who could be against me? See, what is it when we start looking at these things, and we start looking at the direction, and we start seeing where my life is going? How many of our fears are actually founded fears? How many of our fears do you look at and go, wow, that's something I really should be afraid of? I've used this story before. My son, when he was younger, used to like jumping off top of the stairs, right? Loved it. Like he thought it was the coolest thing ever to jump off the top of the stairs onto the couch. Never had a fear of it, right? Never once thought that he was going to fall off the couch and break his neck or anything like that. And I watch him do it all the time. He would like try and do somersaults and all those things, like, flips. And then one day, his mom walked in from work, and Michael's in the middle of doing it. And she was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And like as soon as Michael landed, he looked at her, like his eyes wide open, and he's like almost into tears instantly. Like he was like, "I don't know what I did wrong. I have no idea what I did wrong." And she's like, "You're gonna kill yourself." That's what she told him. Like you're like, and he'd been doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like there was like I was sitting right there, and he looked at me like I had done something wrong. Like, how would you let me just kill myself here? Like I was like, wait. Wait a minute. Like you're fine, dude. Go ahead, climb back up there and do it again. That's fine. Don't worry about that. She was like, "Don't do that again. You're going to kill yourself." And see, fear is not from God. See, we are the ones that instill fear into ourselves. Like we are the ones that we put fear into our kids. We put fear into one another. And sometimes it's the right thing, right? Sometimes we put fear into our kids. We go, "Don't touch the stove. It's hot." And what do? Like, whatever. It is hot. Yeah, it is. And so sometimes it's what we're supposed to do. But other times, we put fear into them in times where they're not supposed to have that fear. They're not supposed to have that time. So here's the thing. What I'll ask you to do is I'll ask you to go, "God, take away the fears that I'm not supposed to have. And inflate me with the strength that you would have me have to do the work that you've asked me to do." See, because your emotional triggers reveal where we need God's healing the most. Your emotional triggers reveal where we need God's healing the most. So as you're thinking through this, and as you're starting to look, your emotional triggers are going to start revealing, well, I need God's healing for this pain, for this fear, for this thing. I need God's healing for this. Wherever this thing is, you know where you need this healing at. Because you may have something that's going on. You may have something that you've gone, I'm afraid of this thing that God didn't give me. I'm afraid of, I don't know what it is. I don't know what this thing is that you're afraid of. I'm afraid of, guys, we went through some unrealistic fears at the beginning of this. We went through and we talked about, some of the things that we talked about our country, and we talked about World War I or World War V or whatever. Like we start talking about these things, and some of these things are unrealistic fears that we go, why are we afraid of that when we don't see some of these things? And all we're going is like, I'm just listening to the constant barrage of news outlets, and it's making me be afraid of things that maybe I'm not supposed to be afraid of. And so we have to start listening, and we have to start going, well, am I supposed to be afraid of that? Or what am I supposed to be afraid of? What is God supposed to be, what are the things that I am supposed to be afraid of? What is it God is going, hey, this is the direction we're supposed to be going. This is what I'm supposed to have. This is what God is telling me I'm supposed to be doing. So I would ask you to go, God, I need to seek healing for what I'm supposed to be afraid of, things that may hurt, things that may destroy, things that may cause pain. And I need you to take away things that I shouldn't be afraid of. Remove the things I shouldn't be. And then help me seek you and move forward in this new direction and this new thing. And help me find healing with you. So that's one of the things that we want to do. Because we know that that's where we're going to find that healing. So, will you do me a favor and will you bow your heads with me? And we're going to close out in prayer. And I want to ask you that as we close out in prayer, that I just want you to, with your eyes closed, I just want you to think about where you have fears that you know that aren't from God. Where you have fears that you know that they didn't come from God. They aren't things that God is going, you should be afraid of this. Just things that you need to cast away, that you know that things that you shouldn't be holding on to, that God goes, I didn't give you that spirit of fear. Cast that away. I truly believe that God wants to do a good thing here today. He wants to do something new with each one of you. And maybe that's walking out of here with a lighter load, with less fear, with less baggage than what you walked in with. And so a lot of that takes casting away things that you've been holding on to that you didn't need to be carrying. You didn't need to be carrying those things when you walked in. And so God's going, I want you to just give that up. And so as you cast that away, go, God, I just don't want this anymore. I don't want to carry this baggage. I don't want to carry these fears. As I leave here, I want to leave that at the cross as I walk out today. I want to walk out feeling renewed and refreshed. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the struggles that we see from David. We see the man after God's own heart. We see him struggle with fear, and we see him struggle with anger, and we see him struggle just time and time again with anxiety, and he's just trying to get through. And so each one of us, as we struggle with anxiety and anger and fear, help us get through and cast these things away. We know that fear is not from you, and we know that unrighteous anger is not from you. We know that all of us struggle with some sort of anxiety from time to time, but we know that when it takes our eyes from you, that we know it's not healthy. So Father, help us with these different emotional triggers. Help us use them to point us to you. Help us use these emotional triggers that as we move in this new direction, that as we sense them, as we feel them, as we encounter them, that they point us to you. That they give us that it's just a warning sign. That we go, as we encounter these warning signs, that we say, well, this is a time to pivot to Jesus. This is a time to pivot to God. This is a time that we go, I need this new, that I feel this urging that I need to go into my prayer closet, that I need to go to seek counsel with Jesus, or I need to go into this new direction, because I know where this is going to lead me. It's either going to lead me to a place of anger, it's going to lead me to a place of anxiety, or it's just going to lead me to a place that I know is going to be unhealthy for me. Father, help us to cast away these unhealthy feelings that we walked in with today. And help us to walk out feeling renewed, refreshed, and knowing that we are a child of the Most High, and that you have good plans for us. And they don't involve us walking out with anxiety, with anger. They don't involve us walking out with fear, but with our heads held high and going that you have a plan for us. Father, thank you. It's in your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray. We all said, amen.